Let's get started. Welcome to our session, our working session titled What We Wish We Learned in Grad School, a workshop. Yep, Megan, was that something?
Oh, Ellie, we can only see you're looking at Kiko chat. Could you switch over to the slides?
I'm going to. Cool. I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw that this was here and that remember the community participation guidelines. I'm sure you've all heard this many times by now, but just so you know, there's also a link to report any issues that you have during the conference. And just also make sure that you check your names on Zoom. Sometimes they seem to show up as odd names, so just make sure that they're the names that you want to be represented as. And we'll get started. There's also a link to this presentation if you have an issue seeing it in this document. And we'll navigate back here a few other times for our activities. Great. So as I said, this is our session, and we'll be creating a data management cheat sheet for grad students. And this is with myself, Yuhan, and Ben, conceived through the community fellow discussion forums that we have. So the motivation for this was that what we've found is that future scientists, such as ourselves and many of our grad student peers, are not taught much about data management specifically in the grad school setting. And because of that, and because of the fact that grad students generate and use a large amount of data throughout their time as graduate students, we thought that this would be a particularly important thing that we could represent and show to grad students that are our peers and also send to other schools to use. And ideally, if they learn through grad school how to manage the data that they are using and creating, then hopefully the goal would be that they will do that in their careers as well. And I just liked this little grad student brain comic where it shows this tiny little section of data stored up there in our brain, and that's our window of opportunity, the place that maybe we can fit in some data management knowledge as well. And we'll get into what we're exactly doing next, but just so everyone remembers or knows, the generic graduate school timeline that we'll be referencing throughout the rest of the session is these kind of 8 steps where you're first admitted to grad school, then you experience coursework for a certain amount of time, you then write your proposal and defend your proposal, then you go through data collection, data analysis and writing up your analysis, finally you defend your dissertation and thesis, or your dissertation or thesis, and then you publish and graduate. Obviously, there are variations to this, but this is the generic version that we will be referencing, so everyone knows.
Hi, everybody. I'm also part of the Community Fellows group. And so for this working session, we've decided, like Ellie was saying, to just sort of try to get everybody started on the same page. So I know, this being ESIP, there's a lot of opinions about different sorts of data life cycles and what kind of approach might be the best. We decided to use the data life cycle by DataOne just to get everybody on the same page and start from sort of the same building blocks. The link to the DataOne website is down here at the bottom of that slide. As Ellie mentioned, you can access these slides from the Schedule. Could you switch to the next slide, Ellie? Cool. So we've also given these are the DataOne definitions of each of the steps in the data lifecycle. And I'm not going to go through each one of them. I'll let you read them on your own. But it, basically consists of the things that you would think of through the whole cycle of collecting your data, cleaning, organizing, archiving, and getting ready for analysis. And so these are kind of the categories that we're going to use to guide the discussion today. And we're going to use them as kind of the meta headers, if you will, for our breakout groups. And then we'll have an opportunity at the end. I'm sure that there are plenty of people in this session who have strong opinions about this and or know significantly more about it than we do. So we're going to bring it back at the end for more opportunity to either suggest other directions that this might take or other baseline organizing sort of strategies that we might adopt for moving into the future. So yeah, like I said, these will be kind of the guiding principles for the breakout groups. And I'll hand it over to Yuhan to give a little spiel about what we're going to do today.
Yeah, and so for today, we'll have 2 rounds of breakout. And so for the first round of breakout, we're going to focus on the brainstorming of the ideas to answer the 3 questions in the breakout task. The first task is why is this part of the data lifecycle important to grad students? And the second part is that how can this be integrated into the conventional grad school timeline? I have a lot of things to say about this question because while we are planning for this session, I figure out that I can just this is a stack of data collection sheets that I have from my master's time. That's 6 times ago. The data is just still sitting on this stack of paper. So if that I know better to do or better data management, that can be a stack of data that can be used by my other colleagues still who are still in China to solve some problems that we're both interested in. But right now, just sitting on my shelf, I finally dug them out and then try to convert them into digital data so other people can still use it. So as Ellie mentioned at the beginning, that all the grads, not all, but most of the grad students will become a scientist who will be creating or managing a lot of data in earth science. So to integrate those data management training into those conventional grad schools would be really important. And the third question is that what are the resources that grad students can use for this part of the data lifecycle? We all know there's wonderful resources from different components from DataOne. They have online training modules from other platforms as well. And in this breakout session, we'll separate into 8 groups, and each group will focus on one component of DataOne lifecycle and data lifecycle. And this is the first round. And then the second round would be reviewing the first round results. So you will choose a different breakout room to review what people have come up for that specific component of data lifecycle. And could you go to next slide? So the final outcome, what we want to have is that the intention of this session is to create a slide deck or a framework for a slide deck that we can bring all those resources and all the discussion we had in the breakout sessions into this framework. And so this can be further move on to create a cheat sheet. Or I know a lot of data management professionals don't like the word cheat sheet for data management, but it's a first step for us to start the conversation of data management for grad school. And it's really hard to change PI's mind that how this grad student will learn data management. But what we can do is provide the resources specifically for grad students to start this long journey for data management training. And this should be approachable, concise, and outline additional resources that we have. And at this point, and I think there are also people start already putting the discussion in the chat, which is great. During the meantime, I would ask you to change your name in the Zoom to the breakout rooms that you are interested in the first round, which is to answer those 3 questions for each component of the data lifecycle. So if you're interested in the planning, and you can change your name as add 1 before your name. If you are interested in the collect, you can add to, etc. And maybe we can go back to the first one more slides to let people know which room is about. And if you don't want to go into any breakout rooms, you can just put the X in front of the name. So you can remain in the main room and you can still have the conversation about data management or graduate school. And Megan will help us to send everyone into different breakout rooms.
Johan,
Can you go
put
back
the
to the
numbers up
tasks?
again?
So yeah, it's the first, okay, yeah. Thanks, Ellie.
And the documents, each group will be editing one of these documents. There's a link in the presentation, but there's also a link back on the Kiko chat in the Google Doc.
That you can also consult that Google Doc in the Kiko chat for the number of the breakout room, if you want to know which section of the data lifecycle goes with which number.
We're doing breakouts that will be these tasks. So you'll be answering these 3 questions in your breakout room. And then I'm actually
somebody's asking whether for task or for breakout room, we're choosing the breakout room, we're not choosing the task. So if you're interested in analyze, you'll put number 8 in front of your name.
Good point.
And we will have 25 minutes for the first round of breakout room for discussion.
I'm just gonna go back to Kiko chat so that
we have a few people who still haven't indicated where they'd like to be. I will just leave you unassigned if you haven't indicated anything. What about you all? What are you going to do? We have to put you somewhere to start. So.
Yep, I'm gonna start in 1, Ben's gonna start in 4, and Yuhan's gonna start in
7.
And
Looks like there's nobody in 7, so maybe you can put me in 8.
Ben's gonna start in 4. And Yuhan's going to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if there's one person in one of the breakout rooms, maybe we can encourage them to pick a different number.
Yep, working on that. So Sophie, you are the only one interested in Ashore. Do you have a second choice you might be interested in?
I think you can just put me in whichever room that has the least amount of people right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I need to collect instead. Thanks for being flexible. All right, I'm going to open them up. The time
would like to be in Discover, which is 6.
Who would like to be in 6?
Steve Diggs.
Oh, thank you, Steve. So there isn't actually anybody in 6. But let me open the rooms and then we'll talk with those of you that are unassigned.
Yes.
Okay, thanks everyone. So 25 minutes and they know what to do?
Yep, and we'll be jumping around between rooms. So if you get stuck, we'll be around.
All right. Let me open all the rooms. And come back if you don't like where you are, we can always reassign you.
Hey, Megan, you can throw me into 6 if you don't mind, so that there's a second person.
There's actually nobody in 6 now either. So you're right. I can move you and Steve into 6 if you'd like. Hang on just a second. Wait, where are you now? Where are you supposed to go?
I was in 1.
Okay. Let's say move to, and I accidentally, you want 6 Discover, but I accidentally named it 7 Discover. Sorry if that's confusing. And Steve, I'm going to put you there as well. And then Blake, is there somewhere
Hey,
you be? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steve. Or was it Blake or Matt?
That wasn't me, I hope.
Okay. All right, let's see. So I'm seeing. All right, Blake, do you want to go anywhere or are you okay where you're at?
I would assume they're not on.
Yeah. All right, let's pause the recording and pause the live stream, but we'll be back.
We're about 5 minutes before the schedule.
Great.
So we misfired. We came back too early.
No, I just like we did introduction really fast, so we did not use the amount of time that we need to use for the introduction.
So in the lapse time, we're right on time, but in terms of clock time, we're early. Time of day.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, we totally ignored the whole obtained the data part.
I thought that was somebody else's job.
Well, I put the definition of discovery and it says potentially useful data are located and obtained along with metadata.
Well, we only had a few minutes. We can't solve the world's problems.
Now, glad to see everyone came back, and we only lost 1 people, which is good, which is great for the breakout. And we have 5 minutes that we can thank for everyone who participated in the first round of breakouts. And now we have 5 minutes. We can choose which room you want to go into to review the discussion other people already had. So you just go in there as a peer reviewer and to see what you think it doesn't make sense, what you think can be improved, or you found that there's additional resources you want to add into there. That's this round of the breakout rooms. And I don't think we have any people taking number 7, right?
Yeah, so 7 might have to be, if you go into 7, you're going to have to do it from the beginning, I think.
There's also no number 3, no 3
Yeah.
and no 7.
We group 2 also did 3.
Oh,
So no 7.
good job.
Yeah,
Great job for group 2, additional points.
For anybody who missed this before, you can also access all of the Google Docs below. Yeah, you can see them on Ellie's screen there. So if you're trying to decide what thing you want to work on for the next breakout session, you're welcome to click on those and see what other people have contributed so far.
So for our second round, we have 15 minutes to review what other people already have in their documents. Maybe we can extend to 20 because we are ahead of our schedule.
Yeah.
So don't want to rush people.
Make sure that you rename yourself with whatever room you want to go to next. So if you have...
And if you don't, you'll end up in the room that you were in before. So,
which is okay if you want to
okay if you want to review your own work.
Look at it with a critical eye.
Could anybody go back to their same room to defend their work, or just leave it to the priests to let them make mincemeat out of it?
I would think
you were
that
6 eggs. I'm going into 6 then. See.
All right, so
suggesting edits now, I believe. So you can't delete your stuff, whatever you put in there.
all right, so I'm gonna have to set a time limit on changing your name because I will not recall if you already changed your number and I already moved you.
let's give 1 more minute for people to change their name.
I have to say that we are becoming masters of Zoom logistics.
We hope we learn, right? It's already second week, and if we are not still cannot handle Zoom, then we should probably find other jobs.
Yeah, some of us are slow learners.
So, okay.
Some of us are just slow, like me. There's no learning.
Um, you guys could just be like repeatedly changing your numbers, and I'm repeatedly moving.
It's like a whack-a-mole scenario.
I'm trying to make it easy for you, Megan.
Thank you. All right. Looks like we are getting there. All right. I think you all will end up in a place that you don't mind being, but if you don't like where you are, feel free to come back to the main room. And I'll set the timer for 20 minutes. That's what you said?
Yes, 20 minutes.
All right. Happy reviewing, everyone.
Here's the notes, and then if you go all the way over, there's the Slido tab. And then you can submit. There's a live poll question. What should the next steps be for this cheat sheet slideshow? And also put the link for anyone who is struggling with PicoChat. You put the link directly to the Slido.
One word.
You can submit multiple answers, I think. Simplify. Yeah.
You're also welcome to upvote answers if you are excited about them.
Can they upvote in this? I don't think they can upvote in this section.
Can they not upvote in this session? Okay. I
And
guess I was thinking of our test question. Oh, that was for our test questions.
Yeah.
Sorry, no upvoting. Just put your questions or your takeaways in there.
Can we see what other people wrote? Because I don't know how to do that. Sorry.
Yes, here, I'll share my screen again.
Well, and if you like something, just add it again and it'll start to get bigger.
Everyone should be able to see. So this will create a nice little word cloud for us to go back to.
I see a comment says, who doesn't care?
You'd be surprised. Yuan has horror stories.
I do have horror stories.
I put in the Funding Friday link. And the reason I did that was a group of us are trying to put together a fun interactive tool on how researchers can help find a repository that suits their needs. So if that interests you, come check out our slide. It's very, very rough right now.
Cool. We actually, all three of us have done Funding Friday. Is that right? But we would be more than happy to at least talk about your ideas and how this could help.
And I think we have another question, right? You're muted, Eddie.
Okay, next question. Where would you like to see this cheat sheet be we said archived, but it's like, where do you want this to live? He said, always a good answer. He said, Ricky. And it's, these documents will be available for, I mean, at least through the end of the conference and then probably long after. So if you didn't get to put all of the suggestions that you would like to put in, you're more than welcome to go back to them and check them out, especially if you didn't get to go through all of the documents, because there's a lot of stuff there. And we'll be reconvening on it after this week. So put in your comments.
I like Stace's comments that we should change the word archive to shared.
Yes.
It would be based. Based would be a better word here. That this should be based in some place, but will be widely shared. Should be widely shared to other places.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Great.
Well, yeah, and I like that. I put the grad school orientation thing in there, is that it should be widely distributed, and that different disciplines, different universities might, tweak it to their needs. It doesn't have to be the authoritative thing. Just get people thinking about it.
And someone put the ESIP data management training, clearinghouse. It should definitely be linked from there, and it might be worthwhile to have the community fellows take a look at those resources and provide comments or suggestions for improvement.
Yeah, it's a huge resource, actually.
And I would just
I guess part of the problem, it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah. And I would just, oops, sorry, Ali.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add that Nancy Hoppenheimer will be really, really happy to have all of you or any of you give her feedback or do what Ted and Mark have suggested. So yeah, definitely put in a plugin for her. She would really appreciate that.
No matter what we do, we should put it on some sort of GitHub style page so that people can go in and update it as necessary or fork it or whatever they think.
Well, and similar to this cluster, that it seems like the best resource for learning the stuff that you don't learn in grad school is community efforts of early career researchers. And so there's one through CoData, there's one in the Polar community, there's a growing number of early career research networks that do a lot of this sort of thing of, teaching you the stuff that they don't teach you.
Yeah, but the original idea of this session was just like, man, we just wish that we have some sort of training like in grad school for this specific topic, so we will not suffer in our later stage of grad school. So
right. You didn't solve the problem yourself. You're right. Yeah.
The effort is trying to to infiltrate. I think this word that Stace had used during our discussion, to infiltrate into the current structure to make sure this happens to other people in the future instead of wishing that will happen.
Right.
It needs to be like a carpentry, so that there's a traveling band of experts who, for the first rounds, before it becomes common knowledge, you're just going to have to go up to people and talk to them and, hand them a sheet and take a class and devote a day. And then it becomes a thing. And then it has a good home, and then people can go to where it's constantly revised and built. Linux got around by word of mouth, of course, but we don't live in that age anymore where there's like 5 computers and people, go to Usenix and trade information. So got to go to them.
Definitely. And one of the things we had been thinking about is we're often given a handbook in a lot of departments that says all of the requirements and the rough timeline. And it would be really helpful to have in that handbook, or at least linked to that handbook. Hey, go look at this. Based on this timeline that you are normally trying to follow, roughly trying to follow, these are the things that you should be thinking about at these steps. Kind of a checklist or whatever form we end up putting this all into, so that you're not maybe skipping over something that would have been really, really helpful to know. There were a lot of things that came up in our groups, and maybe we should do a little bit of a report out, because we're actually 15 minutes early, which is awesome. But yeah, there's a lot there. So does anyone want to do a report out on, there's lots of discussion happening in the chat.
I see a chat comments about the HuffPost article, 10 things I wish I knew my first year of grad school. Somebody want to write that, or somebody already wrote that?
I'm sure that somebody, probably 10 or 20,000 people have already written it, but maybe we should find some of them.
Yeah. Maybe that needs to be LinkedIn.
I'm really a big fan these days of OpenScapes that Julie talked about in the first plenary or the second plenary. And I mean, I think that's, forming cohorts of graduate students and learning together with them, I think is a super powerful way to go.
So there's great. So let's start with the planning group. Does anyone want to say a little bit about the discussion in that group? And I'll share my screen
again. I think Steve mentioned that he wanted to report out on 6. Maybe you can start with that.
Sure. We'll open that. Steve, do you want to get started?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to drop, I'm not going to share my screen. I'm going to do that. That would be insane. But I did drop the, oh, you got it already. Okay. So for many of at least the graduate students I interact with, if they can't find the data that they want, then they have to do something crazy like change the scope of what they do or change the topic. And that, can get you off on the wrong foot. So we felt the discovery was pretty important to graduate students. And then discovery is not known to grad students, though the exploring the topics of interest early, in grad school. So there's how can this be integrated? I'll just tell you kind of where we came from in all of this. And I think that this applies to a lot of the other parts of what I wish I knew. And that is that this information isn't broadly known, but there have been a lot of different efforts to address these different components. And they're not in a place where anybody can discover them. But I want to echo what my partner in crime, Jessica, has been harping on, which is a statement of values, that the institution has certain values. And if data preservation, data discovery, proper data curation isn't a value, then this is kind of all for naught, that people have to pick it up on their own. So I think that we thought that the biggest thing in terms of for data discovery, all of this flows from a statement of values from the institution that are matriculating these graduate students. Finally, we put down a lot of the resources that everybody else had. If you could scroll down a little bit. Wow, people built on this quite a bit. That's great. This is the stone soup idea. Where to put it? Well, I don't know if the people who, I guess that's the other side of the equation, right? From the left side and the right side of the equation. For some people, data producers, discovery becomes their responsibility in terms of where to put it in the right repository. Ted will be happy to hear me say that with the proper metadata. And that is a subject in and of itself. And then I would like to see that discovery techniques are part of the curriculum It has to be, because for everything else we expect students to know, we teach them directly, but for this sort of thing, we expect them to pick it up, you know, sort of ad hoc, and it can't be like that. So there has to be structure to it. But again, I think that Jessica brought up the most important point, and that is a statement of values from the administration and the leadership of the institution is going to be key to data discovery, data planning, and data preservation. So I'll end it there.
Nice. I think that really leads into would anyone from, let's see, Plan or Assure, or let's see, what are those other groups at the beginning? Jason?
I can do Plan.
Great.
If you want.
Yeah.
Well, basically, the key thing that we brought up, and it looks like wasn't taken out during editing, so other people probably agree with, is that without a solid plan, even if it's going to evolve during the course of a project or a dissertation, really helps you work well with the limited time and resources you might have during your project. And that planning, if it includes all the other aspects, is beneficial to you professionally in that it sets you up for a job and gives you good training, but also it helps the people that might come into your lab afterwards take up sort of the research and move it forward. And one thing that was sort of a personal opinion that I interjected during our conversation with integrating this into graduate school is that it will help you. It'll help you manage up if your PI isn't necessarily somebody who thinks along data management mentality. But my concern personally was all the way through my entire academic career, undergrad, master's, and PhD, I worked on curriculum committees, and getting something like a course added to a program is almost impossible. Unless the faculty on the committee are all pretty much agreeing that it's something that needs to be added. So as great as getting stuff into graduate programs seems, I kind of have to agree with some of the other comments that this might have to be more of like a seminar type thing that can be introduced. And if you reach out to graduate programs, the students themselves and their association, they're looking for, there's often some funds or opportunities for them to bring in speakers for themselves. That's often financed by the program itself. So this type, if there was a seminars type series or something like that could work in this regard, maybe super helpful and be used a lot more and more immediately than trying to, you know, infiltrate the faculty curriculum committees. And if they're seeing it working in their labs, maybe then the faculty will bring it back to the committee and say, hey, students have done this on their own, but it, you know, they basically paid for the research to show that it works. Let's try and make it part of our plan. So, and there's some good resources. The number ones would be data management plan, dmptool.org in the United States and DMP online that graduate students can access. And then maybe if we work with professional organizations that graduate students are often joining, they can help with early stage planning, because one of the first things grad students tend to do is join their major organization. And there's a lot of resources on those websites, often for new scientists. So reaching out to those organizations and providing this type of a cheat sheet might be super helpful.
I think that's a really great point. And actually that was something that was added by or something that was related to what you said was added by the group after you, was that I think it was Blake that said that journals often have requirements for what they need you to provide for your data management or data citations, at least something like that. So checking into journals as well, because I think you're right that it would be really hard to change a lot of curricula. So yeah, finding other ways to enter. An ESIP lecture series. Bring people in. Let's see. Next group, does anyone from the Collect/Assure group
Ellie, I'll go. This is Sophie. So Ellie, Mark, and I work on the first iteration. It looks like Jason was able to review for us, so thank you. But for the collect part, we basically thought it was actually one of the most important part or most exciting part for the grad students, because that's when things are actually happening. And we basically said that because it's kind of a traditional activity, quote unquote traditional activity for the program, it's not so much how do we actually integrate this into the activities or into the program, but it's about how do we make that process even better, or how do we optimize that experience so that when the graduate students go into the workforce, they're even more prepared from their experience. So in particular, Mark highlighted the fact that even though it's a process that we expect the students to go through, it can be somewhat fluid or somewhat anecdotal or just somewhat organic. So we would definitely love for the process to be more organized or be more consistent, so that they are picking up best practices or recommended practices while they were going through the process, not only from their learning environment, but also from the community, so that as they look forward, they can see what they're expected to do when they are joining the workforce. So the experience itself isn't isolated or isn't quote unquote lab-based or school-based, but really it's very consistent with the real life, and then that they can continue the best practices or the recommended practices and contribute when they are part of the workforce. There's quite a bit of good information from Mark, since he lectured on or he presented on this topic not too long ago. So we have quite a bit of resources on this. And I can continue with Assure, if you like, since the same three of us started out with the initial version. And then again, I see Jason and Christine providing information. So thank you both for that. I actually really like the comments that you put in. But basically for this one, Assure, for us, collect is basically sandwiched between two very important phases, plan and assure. So we talked quite a bit about how we want collect to have a good handoff between these two phases, and assure isn't really a separate phase. It's really a phase that happens before collect, because you have to plan for what you're going to check for or what kind of error prevention you're going to make. You're actually going to detect errors or have mechanisms to detect errors while you're doing your collection. And of course, after your collection is done, you actually want to be able to assess it before you continue with the next phases. And so assure is really not an independent phase, but really integrated with the collection phase. I would just say that with that, I haven't read through all the comments, but it jumped out at me where both Christine and Jason are highlighting some of the effects of having a short process, basically, being able to demonstrate reproducibility later on, and also making sure students are able to understand how they're designing for the process and what output or outcome they're expecting so that they can actually achieve it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Anyone from Describe wanna?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Here's Raisa.
And
so
one note, sorry, I realized
don't worry.
Like 2 or 3 minutes left, so just try to keep it under like 60 seconds, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Okay, so one point that Ted mentioned was that Describe is kind of a foundation that goes across the whole data cycle. And it's also the foundation for reuse, findability of the data, for publishing, and also for integrating the data that you collect into any future global studies or cross-institutional studies. So it really increases the value of your data, because without the metadata, knowing where your data came from and all of that, you can't really use it because you don't have the context to actually analyze it in. And then for where to integrate it into the graduate program, we thought that both sprinkled throughout the graduate program would be a good approach, and also to maybe have data management and something like that as a required section of your thesis proposal. So, and as resources, we talked about some domain standard descriptions, so the mixed standards for omics or DAB core for biodiversity, and also ETHUB and OpenScapes, because we really like the idea of the cohort training and like long-term bite-sized learning and application. And yeah, I think that's it, a quick word.
Hey, Ellie, scroll down to the bottom of that. I've revised our picture.
I love that.
I like it. I like your background too. What do you think of that? Anyone from Preserve? You have 30 seconds.
Largely what we said was
We won't be kicked out of this room.
That's true. If people want to stick around, we can do a little bit longer of a discussion. Not too long though, because we have a very exciting plenary to get to.
Basically, our point was graduate students don't know that they should be preserving their data in a lot of cases, but it is required for publication and it's good practice to do. So we need to teach them about repositories that exist, whether that's using a repo finder tool, whether that's using what's the DataCite tool, and yeah, largely it has to be a required thing or provide pizza because otherwise they will not come.
That was a fantastic short report out. That was awesome. I always agree with pizza. Integrate. Anyone?
I think that group, sorry, go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, we got into integrate sort of late, and I think the important thing that we, during the second round, but the important thing was that integration is really where everything else comes together. If you haven't described it well, if you haven't assured its quality, if you haven't, put it into maybe a standard format, then when integration is the phase where, the poop hits the wall. If things aren't well done beforehand, you're going to figure it out when someone tries to integrate your data with theirs. So that's the big piece, I think, of integrate. It's rubber on the road.
And then analyze, last group. Anyone?
Is Stace still on the line?
Hi, I'm still here. I was just reading the integrate document. Sorry, hi. Analyze quickly. Yes, it's an exciting part of research. What generates the results for publications. That's the big importance for grad students. And we talked about efficiency and reproducibility as being key skills to apply in this step of the life cycle. And we talked about a lot of different ways we can integrate this concept into graduate school. And we discriminated this as opportunities within formal education, within the courses, in informal opportunities through workshops, and then also just, I'll use the word infiltrate again, Yuhan, infiltrating the lab groups to facilitate providing a cultural norm for the best practices for efficiency and reproducibility. And in terms of resources, I'm trying to think of some things that haven't been mentioned yet. I'm not sure if I explicitly heard the Carpentries foundational type software workshops, but then also domain specific workshops such as Hack Weeks, sharing or connecting the students to community resources that can help them find software to analyze their data, like resources through fora and users groups online. And yeah, that's a little summary in 1 minute.
Thank you. And we just wanted to point out, if you are interested in us following up in some way or just being included in future discussions, put your name and contact information under the participants tab on the Google Drive or Google Doc. Ben or Yuhan, do you have any concluding remarks?
No, I think it's
No.
really exciting to see the discussion, and a lot of chat has been happening. So I've been copying those chats into our Google Doc to make sure that we do not lose any of those. And
Good.
we really thank all of your participation, and we will definitely follow up.
Yeah, that was basically all I had to say. I also copied a couple of things out of there, Yuhan. And yeah, we really appreciate everybody coming and joining the session today. Happy to take further comments and suggestions. Like if people didn't get a chance to talk, obviously it's always hard to capture everything in these hour-and-a-half sessions. So you're welcome to follow up with any of us and participate as much as you'd like going forward. So thanks a lot, everybody.
And we hope to see everyone at the plenary at 6 o'clock.
Or 3 o'clock if you're on the West Coast.
If you're on 3 o'clock Eastern time.
Great session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This is really fun.